She was my greatest rival in the daylight, cold, untouchable, always one step ahead. But when the world went quiet, she became the only person I couldn't stop thinking about. And what started as competition slowly turned into something neither of us could control. If you've ever felt the line blur between hate and love, don't forget to like, share, and follow for more stories like this. She walks into the office like she owns the air I breathe. Sharp heels, sharper eyes, and that calm, controlled confidence that makes everyone else step aside without realizing they've done it. My rival. The one person who never lets me win without a fight. Every meeting turns into a battlefield. Every glance into a challenge. We don't speak, we clash. Words become weapons, silence becomes strategy, and every small victory feels like survival. I tell myself I hate her. I hate the way she smirks when she proves me wrong. I hate how she remembers every detail I forget. I hate how she never looks intimidated. Especially not by me. But hate isn't supposed to feel like this. Because when the day ends and the world shrinks into something quieter, something softer, everything changes. The tension doesn't disappear. It shifts. It becomes something heavier. Something that lingers in the space between us when no one else is watching. At night, she's different. Or maybe she's the same, just without the armor. Her voice loses its edge. Her eyes don't challenge, they search. And when she's close, too close, I forget every argument we had just hours ago. I forget who won, who lost, who said the last word. All I remember is her. The same woman who tears apart my ideas in daylight is the one who brushes her fingers against mine like it means something. Like I mean something. And I don't pull away. I never do. We exist in two worlds that should never overlap. By day, we're rivals who refuse to bend. By night, we're something else entirely. Something unspoken, something dangerous. There are moments when I catch her watching me, not like an opponent, but like she's trying to understand me. And it terrifies me more than any argument ever could. Because if she sees me, really sees me, then I won't be able to pretend anymore. I won't be able to call this hate. And maybe she knows that. Maybe that's why she steps closer instead of backing away. Why her voice softens when she says my name like it belongs to her. Why every touch feels like a secret we're both too afraid to admit out loud. We're not supposed to want each other, but we do. And the worst part? Tomorrow morning, we'll walk into that office like nothing happened. Like we're still enemies. Like the fire between us is just ambition, not something far more dangerous. But deep down, we both know the truth. She's my rival by day, Rand my weakness by night. By day, everything between us is a calculated war disguised as professionalism. The office becomes our arena, every polished table a battleground, every presentation a carefully laid trap. She doesn't just compete. She anticipates, dismantles, and dominates with a precision that feels almost personal. It's not enough for her to win. She needs to prove that I can lose. And I never make it easy for her. We circle each other in meetings, trading arguments that sound logical to everyone else, but carry something sharper underneath. Every word I choose is deliberate, every pause measured, because I know she's watching for weakness. She always is. The moment I hesitate, her lips curve slightly. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough to tell me she's already 3 steps ahead. It's infuriating. She challenges everything I say, not carelessly, but with a kind of quiet confidence that forces the room to listen. When she speaks, people lean in. When I counter, they look between us like they're watching something unfold that's bigger than just business. And maybe it is. Maybe it always has been. Because this isn't just about work. It's in the way she remembers my past arguments and uses them against me, twisting my own logic until I have to fight my way out of it. It's in the way I prepare twice as hard, staying up late, just to make sure I won't give her the satisfaction of catching me off guard. We push each other harder than anyone else ever could, raising the stakes with every encounter until winning feels less like success and more like survival. There's tension in every glance we exchange across the room. Not loud, not obvious, but constant. A silent understanding that neither of us will back down. Not today. Not ever. Other people notice it, even if they don't understand it. They see the way conversations shift when we're both involved, how the air tightens, how decisions suddenly carry more weight. Some think it's just rivalry. Others think it's ego. They don't see the layers beneath it, the way every interaction feels charged, like something is always on the verge of breaking through. But we keep it controlled. We keep it sharp, professional, contained within the boundaries we've built. Still, there are cracks. Moments where she looks at me a second too long after I make a point, like she's impressed but won't admit it. Moments where I catch myself anticipating her reactions before she even speaks, knowing exactly how she'll counter, exactly how she'll try to corner me. It becomes a rhythm, almost predictable in its intensity, like a dance neither of us agreed to but both refused to stop. And the strangest part is how much I need it. Her resistance, her challenge, the way she refuses to let me settle for anything less than my best. It drives me. It frustrates me, consumes me, pushes me to become sharper, stronger, better. Without her, the victories would feel empty. Without her, there would be no fight, so we continue. Day after day, meeting after meeting, argument after argument. Two rivals locked in a battle neither of us is willing to lose. Even as something unspoken continues to grow beneath the surface, threading itself through every word, every glance, every near victory that feels a little too personal to just be about work. When the day finally loosens its grip and the office empties into silence, something between us begins to shift, not all at once, not in any obvious way, but slowly, like a tension that no longer needs to stay hidden behind sharp words and controlled expressions. The same walls that echoed with quiet rivalry hours ago now hold something softer, heavier, something that lingers instead of clashes. It usually starts with proximity, a moment where we're both still there after everyone else has left, pretending we have work to finish, pretending there's a reason to stay. The distance we keep so carefully during the day begins to blur. She stands closer than she needs to. I don't move away, and suddenly, the silence between us isn't strategic anymore. It's charged. Her voice changes first. It loses that precise edge she uses to cut through my arguments, softening into something quieter, almost thoughtful. When she speaks, it's not to challenge me, not to corner me into defending myself. It's different, slower, like she's choosing her words for an entirely different reason now. And I feel it, the shift, the way it unsettles me far more than any debate ever could, because I don't know how to fight this version of her. There are no rules here, no structure to hold on to. During the day, I know exactly who we are. Opponents equals adversaries. But at night, those lines blur until I can't tell where the rivalry ends and something else begins. The way she looks at me isn't about winning anymore. It's searching, curious, like she's trying to understand something she can't quite define. And I let her. That's the dangerous part. I let her step closer. I let her linger in my space, close enough that I can feel the warmth of her presence, close enough that every small movement feels intentional. There's a different kind of tension now, not sharp and cutting, but heavy and undeniable, like something waiting to happen, but neither of us willing to be the first to name it. Our conversations change. They drift away from work, away from strategies and deadlines, into quieter territory. Fragments of ourselves slip through, small details, guarded truths we'd never reveal under fluorescent lights and watchful eyes. It's subtle, almost unnoticeable at first, but it builds, layering something deeper beneath everything we've already created between us. And then there's the silence again. But this silence isn't empty. It's filled with everything we're not saying. Every question neither of us is brave enough to ask. It stretches between us, thick and fragile at the same time, until even the smallest action feels significant. A glance that lasts too long. A breath that catches for no reason. The space between our hands that feels smaller than it should. When she finally touches me, it's never accidental. It's careful, almost hesitant, like she's testing something she doesn't fully understand. Her fingers brush against mine, light but deliberate, and it sends something through me that I can't explain, something that has nothing to do with rivalry or competition. It's quieter than that, deeper, and I don't pull away. I never pull away, because in those moments, the version of us that exists during the day feels distant, almost unreal. The sharp edges, the constant push and pull, it all fades into the background, replaced by something that feels more honest, more dangerous in its own way. There's no pretending here, no hiding behind ambition or pride, just this. This closeness, this tension that doesn't need to be spoken to be understood. The way she says my name like it means something different now, like it carries weight it didn't before. The way I respond without thinking, without guarding myself the way I always do when the sun is still up. And yet, even here, there's restraint, an invisible line neither of us fully crosses, even as we stand right at the edge of it. It's in the way she pauses, the way I hesitate, both of us aware that whatever this is, it changes everything. Once it's acknowledged, there's no going back to simple rivalry, no returning to the safety of pretending we're just competitors. So we stay in this space, balanced between what we are and what we could be, letting the tension stretch just far enough to feel it, but never enough to break it. We tell ourselves it's nothing. That's how it begins. This quiet, persistent denial that wraps around every interaction, every glance that lingers too long, every moment that feels like it means more than it should. During the day, it's easy to hide behind structure, behind the clear lines of competition and professionalism. There are rules there, expectations, roles we play so convincingly that even we almost believe them. Almost, because the truth keeps slipping through in ways we can't fully control. I tell myself I hate her because it's simpler that way. Easier to frame the way my thoughts keep returning to her as frustration, as irritation, as the natural result of being constantly challenged. It makes sense on the surface. She pushes me, questions me, forces me to sharpen every idea until there's no room left for error. Of course she occupies my mind. Of course I anticipate her reactions, replay our arguments, think about what I could have said differently. That's what rivals do. Except it doesn't stop when the arguments end. It follows me home, lingers in the quiet moments, when there's no reason to think about work. No reason to analyze the way her eyes narrow slightly when she's making a point, or the way her voice shifts when she's certain she's right. I tell myself it's just habit, just the residue of a long day spent in constant mental sparring. But habits aren't supposed to feel like this. They aren't supposed to come with that subtle pull in my chest when I remember the way she looked at me. Not as an opponent, but as something else entirely. They aren't supposed to make me pause, to wonder, to question why certain moments replay more vividly than others. So I ignore it. We both do. We lean harder into the roles we understand, sharpening our words, reinforcing the distance between us in the only way that feels safe. If we keep the rivalry intense enough, constant enough, then there's no room for anything else to exist. No space for uncertainty, for vulnerability, for the quiet realization that something has already shifted beyond our control. It becomes a kind of unspoken agreement. We don't talk about what happens in those quieter moments. We don't acknowledge the way the tension changes when the world narrows down to just the two of us. Instead, we return to the familiar, to the structure that keeps everything contained. She challenges me in meetings with the same precision as always. I push back with equal force. We play our parts perfectly, as if nothing exists beyond that. But the cracks are there, in the brief pauses where neither of us speaks right away, like we're both thinking about something we can't say out loud. In the way her gaze sometimes lingers just a second too long before she looks away, her expression tightening as if she's caught herself slipping. In the subtle shifts in her tone, moments where the sharpness softens before she quickly pulls it back into place. And I do the same. I catch myself almost saying something that doesn't fit within the boundaries we've set. Something too honest, too revealing. I feel it rise to the surface, that impulse to acknowledge what's really happening beneath all of this. And then I push it down, bury it under logic and restraint, because admitting it would mean changing everything. It would mean facing the fact that this isn't just rivalry, that the intensity between us isn't solely driven by ambition or pride. It would mean questioning every interaction, reinterpreting every moment, and neither of us is ready for that. Not when the alternative is so much easier, so much safer. So we stay in denial. We let the contradiction exist without naming it, without examining it too closely. We pretend the tension is still about winning, about proving something to each other, even when it starts to feel like something else entirely. Something deeper, more complicated, something that doesn't fit neatly into the categories we've built to keep ourselves grounded. And maybe, on some level, we both know the truth. Maybe that's why the denial feels so fragile, like it could break at any moment if either of us pushes just a little too far. Maybe that's why every interaction carries that underlying edge, not just of competition, but of something we're both trying very hard not to see. Because once we do, there's no pretending anymore, no hiding behind rivalry, no disguising emotion as ambition. Just the reality of whatever this is between us. Unfiltered, undeniable, and impossible to ignore, no matter how hard we try to convince ourselves otherwise. The contrast doesn't just exist. It defines everything. It shapes the way we move around each other, the way we speak, the way we pretend. In the daylight, we are precision and control, every interaction sharpened into something competitive, something measurable. There's an audience, expectations, a structure that demands clarity. You win, or you lose. There is no room for ambiguity in that world, no space for anything that can't be explained in terms of strategy or success. And we are very good at that version of ourselves. We know exactly how to perform it, how to hold eye contact just long enough to assert dominance, how to dismantle each other's arguments without ever crossing the invisible line that would make it personal in the eyes of everyone else. It's almost effortless, the way we fall into that rhythm. Predictable, even. If someone were to watch us, they'd think they understood the dynamic completely. Two rivals equally matched, locked in a professional battle driven by ambition and pride. But that understanding is incomplete, because the moment the setting changes, the moment the audience disappears and the structure dissolves, everything we've built during the day starts to feel like a carefully constructed illusion. The contrast is so sharp it's almost disorienting. It's not just that we behave differently, it's that the meaning behind everything shifts. A glance during the day is a challenge. The same glance at night becomes a question. A step closer in a meeting is a tactic, a way to assert presence. That same step in an empty room carries an entirely different weight, something quieter, something that doesn't need justification. It's the same actions, the same people, but the context transforms them into something else entirely. And that's where it becomes dangerous. Because the more this contrast deepens, the harder it becomes to separate the two worlds. What happens at night starts to bleed into the day, in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. A hesitation where there shouldn't be one. A flicker of something unguarded in the middle of an argument. A moment where the usual sharpness softens just enough to feel out of place. We notice it. We have to. We're too aware of each other not to. And instead of addressing it, we compensate. We push harder during the day, reinforcing the rivalry with even more intensity, as if we can bury the softness beneath something sharper. Arguments become more pointed, victories more deliberate. It's like we're trying to prove, to each other, to ourselves, that the version of us that exists under fluorescent lights is the real one. But it never fully works, because no matter how sharp the words get, no matter how controlled the environment is, there's always that underlying awareness of what exists beyond it. The memory of quieter moments, of unguarded expressions, of a different kind of closeness that doesn't fit within the rigid structure we rely on. And it changes the way everything feels. The rivalry is no longer just about winning. It's layered with something else, something unspoken that complicates every interaction. Every argument carries an echo of something more personal. Every glance holds a trace of recognition that has nothing to do with competition. It creates a constant tension between what is seen and what is hidden. To everyone else, we are consistent, predictable, rivals in the purest sense. They don't see the shift, don't feel the weight behind certain silences or the meaning behind certain looks. They interpret everything at face value, and we let them. We give them exactly what they expect, because it's easier that way, safer. But beneath that surface, the contrast keeps growing, stretching the distance between the two versions of us until it feels like we're balancing on something fragile. The line between public conflict and private connection becomes thinner, harder to maintain without slipping, and the more it blurs, the more impossible it becomes to pretend that one doesn't affect the other. Because they're not separate anymore. They're intertwined, each feeding into the other, each reshaping the way we see and understand everything that happens between us. The rivalry intensifies the connection, and the connection complicates the rivalry, until neither can exist in a simple, isolated form. It's a cycle we're caught in, one we don't know how to break or if we even want to. What exists between us isn't built on declarations or clear lines. It's built on everything we refuse to say. That's what makes it dangerous. Not the rivalry, not the tension everyone else can see and neatly define, but the quiet, persistent undercurrent of something deeper that never fully surfaces, never fully resolves. It lives in the spaces between words, in the pauses that stretch just a second too long, in the way we both seem to understand things we've never actually explained. It starts subtly, almost imperceptibly, a look that lingers, not out of challenge, but out of recognition. A silence that doesn't feel empty, but full. Crowded with thoughts neither of us is willing to give voice to. It builds slowly, layer by layer, until every interaction carries a second meaning beneath the obvious one. On the surface, we're still the same, sharp, controlled, opposing forces locked in a constant push and pull. But underneath that, something else is taking shape, something that doesn't belong to the rules we've been following, and the more it grows, the harder it becomes to ignore. There are moments when it almost breaks through, moments where her expression softens just enough to reveal something unguarded, something that doesn't align with the role she plays so perfectly during the day. Moments where I feel my own defenses slip, where the instinct to challenge her fades for just a second, replaced by something quieter, something that feels far too personal to exist in the space we've defined for ourselves. But we always pull back, not because we don't feel it, but because we do. Because acknowledging it would mean stepping into something neither of us can fully control. It would mean risking the balance we've built, fragile as it is. The rivalry gives us structure, gives us a reason to stay close without asking too many questions. It's a shield, a way to keep circling each other without ever having to confront what's really pulling us together. Without it, everything changes. So we let the bond remain unspoken. We communicate through implication, through the smallest shifts in tone, the faintest changes in body language. A glance becomes a conversation. A pause becomes an admission. We learn to read each other in ways that go beyond logic, beyond reason, until it feels like we're constantly on the edge of understanding something we're both too afraid to confirm. And that fear, it's what makes it irresistible. Because there's a certain intensity in not knowing, in feeling something so strongly without ever defining it. It keeps everything alive, keeps the tension from settling into something stable or predictable. Every moment feels charged, uncertain, like it could tip in either direction at any time, towards something undeniable, or away from it entirely. That uncertainty becomes its own kind of connection, something we share without ever naming it. It ties us together just as strongly as any spoken truth could, maybe even more so, because it leaves room for possibility, for interpretation, for the kind of tension that never quite resolves, but it also traps us. Because as long as it remains unspoken, it can't evolve into anything more. It stays suspended in that fragile space between rivalry and something deeper, never fully becoming one or the other. We're left navigating a bond that is constantly shifting, constantly pulling us closer while giving us just enough distance to avoid confronting it directly. And the longer it continues, the more it defines us. Not just as rivals, not just as two people caught in a complicated dynamic, but as something far more intricate, two individuals bound by a connection that exists outside of logic, outside of expectation, something that refuses to fit into the roles we've tried so carefully to maintain. It's not stable, it's not safe, but it's impossible to walk away from, because somewhere within all that silence, all that tension, all that unspoken understanding, there's something that feels real in a way nothing else does. The next morning, the tension finally breaks. Not in a meeting, not in an argument, but in a quiet moment where neither of us looks away. The words we've been avoiding don't come out perfectly, but they come out anyway, unguarded and real. And for the first time, we don't hide behind rivalry. She steps closer, not as my opponent, but as someone who chose me despite everything. Our worlds don't split anymore. By day, we still challenge each other, but now there's a softness beneath it, a quiet understanding that we're no longer fighting against each other. And by night, we don't pretend at all.